quantum physics and the deep rabbit hole of going all the way down the fields of physics is what popped me out into my right brain, into my spiritual creative brain, where I started to recognize some of this larger picture that lies beyond the five senses. And it's a practice that I've put in place in my life to connect to that part of myself.
Cue music. Places, everybody, places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com. And as always, it's my honor and pleasure to be with you here on another brand new episode. And I'm so excited. My friend Missy called me the other day and said, "You've got to talk to Noah." And I said, "Okay, let's chat." And so we've got him on. His name is Noah Hammond Tyrrell, and he's a spiritual life and business coach. And he's got an amazing, we'll say, success story, optimize your life story, because he was newly married and living in Los Angeles, and he took a big risk business-wise, and it didn't pan out. And he and his wife were left nearly homeless and nearly broke. And then it all came crashing down even beyond that, if that's just amazing to me. And he writes here in his bio that full of life, 6'7" father had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And Noah and his wife immediately headed to San Diego, only to hear the resignation in everyone's voices, doctor's family, and even dad. But that's when Noah went to work, and he went to home and started digging into his training to find out some natural healing for this horrible diagnosis. And so, my goodness, I know we'll jump into some of the things you found, Noah, but what a shock to have a family member diagnosed with a terminal liver cancer. And sometimes, usually with that diagnosis, that doesn't give you a lot of time to teach yourself natural recovery.
No, they gave him 3 months to live. So we had to act quickly, for sure.
Oh my gosh. And so were you a natural sort of researcher, or what brought you into this idea of, I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to find a way to help my dad?
Well, I think that's sort of my MO, right? I started as a life and business coach because I was 4 years into my engineering degree and realized I didn't want to be an engineer. And I had also been studying all these other things that interested me in psychology, in personal development, in all these different areas. And so I just started doing it and creating results for people. And I've been doing that ever since for the last 13 plus years. And so I've always been a research things, test it out. If it works, keep it and share it. If it doesn't work, let go of it, right? And that's exactly what I did in this situation. You know, when I got the call that my dad was really sick, and I came to the hospital and saw him laying there on the bed and looking lifeless and gray. You know, he'd lost 60 pounds in a month.
Wow.
He had a tumor on his liver the size of almost a mini football, right? This big, giant mass. And the doctors didn't give him a chance. They just said, "You have 3 months to live about." That's the diagnosis. It wasn't, "Here's our treatment plan. Here's our protocol. Here's what we're going to do to try to save you." They were resigned. They were resignated, right? So to me, though, the way I live, the way I operate, there was no other choice but to go for it. And on top of that, because I had been exposed to a lot of different modalities, a lot of different healing techniques, a lot of different practitioners with a lot of different types of ancient wisdom, I knew cancer could be cured. I knew it could be healed, and that there's nothing that the body can't heal. And that's a fact. There is nothing that the body can't heal. Its wisdom is far beyond anything that even modern science can comprehend.
Oh, I agree. No, but I like to put the asterisk there. given the right set of circumstances. We have to treat the body right. Too often, whether it's a medical professional or the person themselves goes home and says, okay, that's it.
Of course. I mean, it's a individual experience. One person could have been exposed to the exact protocol that we did with my father and had a negative outcome, right? Another person, my dad, right? We went to work, and the two things that we decided to go with was one, a hemp oil protocol with both THC and CBD in high doses. And since THC is psychoactive, we had to ramp that up over time. CBD is not psychoactive, meaning it doesn't get you high and stoned out of your mind. So we could start right away with a high dose of CBD, and we ramped up THC over time as his body was able to acclimate to more and more of it. And that was part of it. And then the other main part of it was a vegetable juicing protocol, specifically with a ton of beets and carrots, because a naturopathic doctor told me those are both very specifically good for the liver. And so I actually took my wife, and, we were in the middle of that business collapse. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to focus on rebuilding anything. I've got a couple clients in tow. I've got enough money to put food in my mouth. I'm going to downsize. I'm going to move down to San Diego, and I'm just going to help. I'm just going to ignore that for right now. I'm just going to see what we can do. So we got to work. I was literally buying beets by the case from the grocery store. I would have the grocer go in the back and just come out with a whole box, right? And buy whatever it was, 25 bunches of beets at once, right? And so we got to work. We started making juice every day, delivering it to him. My dad's a pretty stubborn guy. He's like Queens, New York, born and bred. So one of the biggest challenges, honestly, was getting him to drink the juice at first. He took a sip of it and said, ew, no way. I said, Dad, well, I don't care what it tastes like. If it's this or death, you drink the damn juice, man. Right. And for some reason, I'm the one who could get through to him. So, but funny enough, within a couple of weeks, he loved the taste of it. And he actually kept drinking it well past the time when his cancer was gone as sort of a preventative.
Now, I'm curious, though. Let me put another little question in here. How did that protocol go over with what I'll put in air quotes, his Western medicine? Or was he even doing Western medicine after that? Sorry, dude, go home. You got 3 months. Enjoy.
So they gave him one dose of what they call chemoablation, which is sort of the new form of chemo that's supposed to be more directed towards a specific area of the body versus just attacking the whole body. So he did one round of that. Nobody gave him that with the outcome of like, hey, this is going to help, and then we'll do more of it and we can cure you. They were just like, well, this is what we got. We'll do a round, sure. Right. And that messed him up. Right. He was home. He had the night sweats, and he was delirious, and he was like seeing things, and he was really messed up. No appetite. Right. But that subsided after a couple of weeks. And we figured, hey, whatever that was, it's at least like a kickstart. And then we went to work with our protocol because they weren't offering a protocol. And the good thing is that we were able to see results so quickly that it gave us the confidence to continue, because just about 6 weeks into it, he went for another MRI, more blood work. And based on the MRI, we were able to see that the tumor had actually shrunk by over 30% in just 6 weeks.
Wow.
So now we knew we were onto something. And we can't, of course, neglect the other party that was at play. We had a lot of prayer going on. And prayer, whether you believe in something spiritual or something religious or something beyond all of the above, it's a scientific fact that there is a unified field. It's a scientific fact that thoughts and vibrations from one place in humanity affect thoughts and vibrations in another place in humanity. So I can't neglect to mention that we had lots of people praying for him and holding space for his healing and his well-being, because that absolutely has an impact. And the juicing and the hemp oil protocol were the two main routes that we went. And where my thinking was from was that the juicing was going to give him the raw nutrients and nutrition his body needed to rebuild his liver. And really the anti-cancer and cancer destruction was coming from the hemp oil protocol. And this isn't my research. This comes from, it was recently in our modern times, it was repopularized by a guy named Rick Simpson. He's a Canadian guy who's helped cure tons of cancers using hemp oil and protocols with hemp oil. And so a lot of people even call it RSO, or Rick Simpson oil. And if you go to a dispensary or a medical dispensary, you can usually ask for and buy RSO, Rick Simpson oil, which is really just hemp oil. And we had a local oil maker, which was a total blessing. There was a person in our community in San Diego who actually did consulting for people who wanted to use medical cannabis to fight what ails them. And she connected us with an oil maker who could make the varied doses for us. And so between the two things, we just plugged on, and the cancer kept shrinking and shrinking. And by the time we were they gave him 3 months to live. He was completely cancer-free within 4. And he actually just celebrated his 4th, wasn't supposed to have it, birthday. He's been cancer-free the entire time since then. At the beginning, he was going for blood work and MRIs every 3 months. Now they have him doing it every 6 months, and he's just been 100% cancer-free since then. Now, the medical community is funny because they don't say you're cancer-free or that you've cured your cancer. They just say that it's in remission, right? It's like, in their eyes, always waiting to pounce back and resurface. And maybe our opinions differ on that.
They say that about people with autoimmune too. And I don't care what you call it, as long as I keep improving my health every day, then you call it whatever you want to call it. But I do want to put a little caveat here that this is just his dad's own experience. We're not trying to sell you on a medical cure-all here, because this is just one person's family's experience and what they did. And what I love about Noah's story, and we'll get into more of it in just a sec, but what I love about Noah's story is he didn't take no for an answer. Let's find the answer. To me, is the real premium piece of this, is when you've got an autoimmune condition too. It may not be you have 90 days to live, but good luck living the rest of your life with, psoriatic arthritis or something. And I love that Noah and his family didn't take no for an answer, didn't take bad news for an answer. They said, look, let's give it a shot.
Of course. That's the only thing you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled that your dad's doing well now. And I know that you came out of this story with a whole lot of insights yourself on helping your own clients understand resilience and willpower and hardiness, all those fancy words that they throw around, including, being comfortable with change. So let's chat just a little bit about some of the things that you learned from, I'll say, this double-edged disaster. First the business, and then all of a sudden it was like the business disaster opened the space in your life to go full hog into helping your own family.
100%. And for the longest time, with the creation of this company, Feel Good Hemp, and the resources we share at the Feel Good Library, for the longest time, I thought that the story of its creation was, wow, what an experience healing my dad. And it wasn't only until recently that I realized my dad and I were coming back from the bottom together, right? I had completely bankrupted a company. I had to let go of my team of 10 people. I made a poor choice, destroyed our cash reserves, and I didn't really know what was next for me. And so the whole experience was an experience of surrender, an experience of let go, an experience of embodying the wisdom of doing what you can with what you got from where you are right now. So I said, I knew what was in front of me. I knew what was in front of me. I knew what I could do to help. I had trained with people who had cured or healed, whatever you want to call it, thousands of extreme diseases, autoimmune diseases, stage 4 cancers. There's multiple solutions for this, by the way. The ones we just really leaned into, the 2 that resonated most and went all in on those, because otherwise you can get sort of overwhelmed doing, okay, I'm going to do that, plus I'm going to do the vegan diet, plus I'm going to do this protocol and that. It's like you sort of need to pick your options and see what feels strong to you and go all in on it. Coming out the other side, I really felt like not only did we have this new business mission with Feel Good Hemp and helping more people find out about the real healing powers of hemp, I also saw the opportunity to share things like my 7 levels of change and different ways to heal the body and to heal the person, because we are multidimensional beings. And an interesting thing about my dad's story, something that you wouldn't see in the bio, in 2008, when that economy recession came through, He had a successful wedding and event photo and video production company in New Jersey. When that recession happened, over 80% of those businesses went out of business, including his. He had to let go of a big team of people. He had clients with unfinished projects, which I know really hurt his heart. He had to close doors of a 2-location office. And it was a family business. Like everyone in my family had worked in it at one point or another, and the doors had to shut forever. And he went into a deep depression after that. The interesting thing that the doctors told us 10 years later when he was being diagnosed was they said, from our estimates, this cancer has been growing for about the last 10 years.
Fascinating.
And in traditional Chinese medicine, they say that the liver is where you store excess and unprocessed anger.
Mm-hmm.
So he went into a deep depression, never processed what really happened. And I truly believe that that is what caused his cancer. And a thing that hemp oil can do for people, especially the amount of THC that man took, is it can shift you on an emotional level. It can help you process what you haven't processed, right? Because again, we're multidimensional beings. We have our spiritual self, our source self, we have our astral self, more like your dream body, right? We have our physical self, apparently physical self, even though science knows it's 99.9% empty space that we call physical, right? That appears to be physical because of our 5 senses. And so I think the message that I want to get to people everywhere and to your audience especially is that there are multiple places to look for your healing. And it's not only in the physical world with the physical actions to treat the physical body, because we stem from the non-physical. At our core essence are non-physical. So there's a lot of layers that you can address that have a physical outcome and a physical impact, but that are inherently non-physical.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to mention to the community, they're probably not really familiar, but we've had numerous people on the show talking about trauma and how childhood and pent-up trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder, et cetera, is a known cause of autoimmune conditions such as fibromyalgia. And so one of the things that we talk about here is being able to release these past traumas. And oh my goodness, losing a business, a family business, and a business that had numerous employees, extremely traumatic. Now, we need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I know that CBD and hemp is not legal in some states, and this goes worldwide. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is CBD and THC and hemp, but knowing I'm going to put that asterisk out there that I know that it is not legal in certain areas. So we're just going to talk in general terms about that when we come back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour. Maybe you don't know I'm also an author. My latest book is for kids. It's Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, a winner of a 5-star reader's favorite review. It's perfect for your early reader and a great bedtime story for your young adventurers. Check it out over at pinkychenille.com. That's PinkyChenille.com. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com. And tonight I'm here with Noah Hammond Tyrrell, and he's from the feelgoodlibrary.com and the feelgoodhemp.org as well. And he's been telling us the story, first of all, of trauma and recovery and some of the things that he did to research himself and help family members recover, specifically in this case, his dad. And one of the things he discovered at the time was CBD oil, hemp, and THC. Now, I did put that little asterisk out there before the break, Noah, about it's not legal everywhere. Let's first talk about CBD because that's generally accepted in the US. And I know other countries are starting to accept it as well. But let's talk generally about CBD first.
Absolutely. So at the end of 2018, the new Farm Bill passed, made CBD derived from hemp completely legal federally, which was fantastic because that was literally right when I was starting this company. I remember our very first package that I shipped out was just before that passed. And I was like all nervous about it, right? Because it was like we knew the legislation was coming, but it hadn't passed yet. And I had to deal with that. But other than that, it's been fully federally legalized in the United States. And any of the different states where maybe there's more conservative view towards it and people have had cases go to court, I've never seen a case where people have actually been prosecuted for CBD. So CBD that comes from the hemp plant is totally legal in the States. And then in other countries, because I know this is international, you have to check by your country. Now, THC, and because of its psychoactivity, is much more regulated and really on a state-by-state, case-by-case basis. So you have to check in with your local state, right? And if you're in California or Oregon, it's recreationally legal. Anyone 18 plus, or maybe it's 21 plus, can just go into a store and buy it. Whereas if you're in Utah, that's not the case. You need to have a medical card and you have to go get that from a doctor. And so it's really on a state-by-state basis and a location-by-location basis. And I'll say if you're fighting something serious, something autoimmune disease, something with extreme pain, especially pain, it's really easy to get medical clearance for these things. I believe now in almost all 50 states in the US on the THC side of things. So it's definitely something to do your own research on. And if you're interested in it as a treatment and for whatever reason your locale is not going to allow you to do that, I would recommend relocating for a moment to see if you can help yourself feel better, because what's more important than that?
That's always an option, is to relocate. And, you know, I like to say there are plenty of reasons to relocate, not just for that. I've had multiple people relocate because a particular medical facility was in a different state. And so being flexible, and when you don't have your health, to me, everything just stopped. Time just stopped when I lost my health back in 2014, and it took me a while to find it, and I'm optimizing it every day. And I love to share new ideas and new ways of being and the way that people approach wellness, because sometimes when you hear someone else's success story, like in your case with your dad, it really can motivate us into the possibilities of change. And you talk about in your work, the 7 levels of change. Let's talk a little bit about how people can view change. Because sometimes when you're feeling crummy, somebody says change and you're just like, leave me alone. I just want to go to sleep.
Right. I have no energy for that.
Exactly.
Please let me sleep. Of course. Well, I actually have a graphic that I could share with the audience who's viewing, and I'll speak it out for the audience who's just listening. So this is something that I developed after coaching people to achieve results in all areas of life. Changes in health for the better, building multi-million-dollar businesses, achieving that dream relationship or harmony in their existing relationship. I've helped people really do all the different main things that we care about doing in life, the things that make us truly happy and fulfilled. And I noticed these different layers were at play. And the reason why this is particularly useful in the case where, let's just use, for example, someone wants to lose weight, right? The typical thing that we do when we approach that is we say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the gym this often. I'm going to eat this way. I'm going to drink this much water. I'm going to run this much, this often, right? We really focus in on layer 3 there, which is your actions and your habits, right? It's doing what it takes. And the reason why this is such an uphill battle and why, the gyms fill up in January and then empty out in February is because people don't have an awareness to address all 7 layers, right? So at the base here, we have your environment and your community. Again, if you want to lose weight, is it going to be easier if your house is literally only filled with whole natural foods, right? And it's going to take a lot of the resistance and a lot of the uphill struggle out of your experience of going to get the result that you want, right? Then the next one, energy and vitality. Do you actually have the energy that you need to take the actions that you say you want to take? And I specifically made this a layer because it's something you need to focus on because, of course, action is a part of all change. And if your energy is tied up with too many commitments or the wrong foods or not enough sleep or not enough optimization in your sleep, this is where CBD comes in for a lot of people.
Or too much body inflammation, which is a real common one for people with autoimmune. It's just when your body's inflamed, the fatigue.
All your energy is being tied up in just trying to deal with that, which is, again, why I mentioned CBD here, because a lot of people sleep better with it or reduce their overall inflammation and liberate more energy and vitality to be available to take the actions we say we want to take, right? Then the third level, we have the actions, the habits, the systems. This is what we all are so familiar with. The level above that is your skills and your strategy. Imagine, again, the weight loss approach. Okay, you're going to go to the gym 5 days a week. Great. Do you actually know what you're doing when you go there? Are you doing the right workouts for your body? Do you have the skills you need and the approach you need to maximize the results? If you do, you're going to be much more likely to stay committed to the actions and the habits that we all focus on so much. And if you don't, you're going to run into resistance. You're not going to get the results you want. You're going to stagnate. Then above that is a huge one that we already mentioned on the show, which is your nervous system. And this tagline I have here is freedom from your past, because it's proven that every cell in your body has memory. It's proven that we have multiple neural networks in our body. Our brain is not the only neural network. We also think with our heart. We think with our gut. It's why people say things like, I know in my heart that blah, 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 or I just know in my gut that blah, blah, blah. We have multiple brains in our body. We have whole body intelligence, but we don't typically know how to take the trauma out of those parts of our body.
And be really aware of the trauma, guys, because I just want to share a quick story. No, the other day I was driving home and I did not, it was sort of the aftermath of a car accident. It was off to the side right there. Uh-huh. And I literally had a moment of flashback to a car accident that happened a couple of decades ago. Right. And by the time I got home, I felt it in my body. I felt my neck had tightened up, my shoulders had tightened up. And, I had thought I had processed that. And like in the scope of things, it was a car accident from 2 decades ago. But I was shocked how the body still had a memory of it. And it wasn't even my car accident that I was observing. I was observing something over there off to the side. And I went, wow, isn't that fascinating?
Right. And that's one of the things that took me the longest to figure out in my personal development journey. There's a really famous book on this called The Body Keeps Score.
Oh, by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
Exactly. And that was a breakthrough book for me. And I realized how much fight energy I had in my body from growing up, guy in America, playing contact sports, playing football and rugby and doing martial arts. There was so much fight energy in my body that I couldn't figure out how to make my business not be a fight and how to make my relationships not feel like a fight. And it was because of all the fight energy stored in my nervous system. And again, this is a place where CBD and products like that can help, because you calm the body, you calm the mind, you calm the nervous system, and it helps to process through some of that stuff. And I'll tell you, even Dr. Joe Dispenza, whose work I'm sure you've heard of or are familiar with, he said his 2 favorite methods for taking trauma out of the body are EFT or tapping work and EMDR work. And actually in the Feel Good Library, I have a whole course called Tapping Hacks, because I went so deep down the tapping rabbit hole as I was deprogramming so many things out of my body and my cellular memory that I actually uncovered techniques and put to use techniques that I'd never seen anyone teach anywhere else. Even these people who are their whole career as tapping coaches. I've never seen them teach some of these things. So I put tapping hacks in the Feel Good library because the nervous system is such a huge part, and it's such a hidden part of why people are repeatedly stuck in patterns that they feel like they can't seem to escape, and they don't know why. It's because we're holding those patterns in our being. We're resonating at the frequency of those patterns and problems. And then we're wondering, why do they keep showing up at our door? It's because we're a match for them. And I don't think too many people, we're certainly not learning this in school. You know, we can leave it at that.
No, we're not. There's so much about the nervous system that even in the medical community is overlooked or minimized.
Absolutely.
And even when I brought up some past traumas, not that car accident story, but some past traumas that I had learned through the work here with other guests, such as Sarah Payton, with a medical professional, not all of them are as enlightened as I would hope. And it was interesting to me, like, oh, you know, you're fine. You just want an anxiety pill or something? And I'm like, yeah,
right.
No, that wasn't where I was going with that.
Right. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but you have to look at the training systems that they're put through, and they only know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. And there's always resistance to change.
There is. And I want to throw out, it's okay to find new doctors or new medical professionals or new people, new coaches, new counselors, whatever. It's okay that if one doesn't align with you, please just, it's better for them too, just to move on.
100%. And I'll share just a brief story. When my dad healed his cancer and completely reversed his diagnosis compared to what the doctors had told him would happen, he was speaking to his liver specialists. And being a liver cancer specialist must be a tough job. You basically specialize in watching your patients die horrible deaths for the most part, right? It's not a good prognosis when you give someone stage 4 liver cancer in the modern Western medical field. And even with that being true, when my dad first started to share how he was, what they said, the healthiest person with stage 4 liver cancer they had ever seen, when he tried to share what he was doing, they literally held their hand up in his face. And when they were like, sir, if you feel like you got a placebo effect or something like that from other things you tried, that's great. We don't want to hear about it.
That happened to me. And I've heard that numerous times from other optimizers and thrivers here on the show that had a diagnosis. And they would say, right, wow, you're doing great. I and other people start to say what it was we were doing. They, I'm happy it's working for you.
Right.
You're thinking, wow, think of all your other patients that might benefit from just one idea.
Of course. And I get it. We're all people. Nobody wants to imagine that they're doing a disservice to anyone. No one wants to imagine that there's something that they don't know that could be life-saving. I mean, you have to put yourself in their shoes too. I understand that. I'll tell you, to their credit, 2 years later, after clean blood work, clean MRIs, clean blood work, clean MRIs, clean blood work, 2 years later, they finally said, what'd you say you were doing again? Tell us about it. Right. So the system can change. It just moves slowly. And sometimes we don't have time to wait around for it. That's all I'm saying. And just to wrap on this 7 levels of change thing, the 6th layer is your identity, your values, your beliefs. And this is super important because something I love to say is that belief precedes response. And I'll tell just a quick anecdote to illustrate that, the truth of that for people. Imagine you were in the forest and you saw a brown bear chasing down at you, right? Running at you. If you thought that's what was happening, if you believed a brown bear is rushing at me to attack me, literally you would go through a whole chemical process in your body. Adrenaline would release, cortisol would release, blood would rush to your fingers and your toes. You would be ready to fight this threat. Okay. Now, if the only thing that changed was you believed that's not a bear, that's my buddy John, and he's wearing a bear suit and he's messing with me. Doesn't matter if it actually is a bear or not. If you believed it wasn't, and it was your buddy messing with you, none of that stuff would happen in your body. You'd just be like, John, even if the thing got to you and mauled you afterwards, you would have no response like in the first scenario, because belief precedes response. And so often attached to things like trauma, attached to social conditioning, attached to so many things, we have beliefs that are in our subconscious mind, which does 95% of our thinking and our operating on autopilot for us. And these beliefs create responses in our life or in our reality that don't serve us, that don't serve the life we want to live, that don't serve us living in harmony, in peace, in health, and balance, that create dis-ease or disease. And so addressing these beliefs, addressing your identity, who you truly believe yourself to be at a core level, is definitely a part of not only creating change, but also creating healing. And then this top level, I truly believe, is the source of all of it. Is I put it as your intuition and your purpose. And really, this is your connection to your higher self, or maybe you call it your true self, or maybe you call it God or Jesus or Buddha or the universe or universal energy or creative consciousness or whatever it is you want to call it. It's this thing that we all stem from, that's one with all of us. You can watch 40, 50 near-death experience tales in a row where people say, I died, my brain was clinically dead, yet I was off having this experience where I was one with all things, where I was part of this unified field. And then I had a choice and I came back into my body. And there's so many scientifically documented experiences of that. It's, to me, a fact. It's an experiential fact. Anyone who chooses to go down that rabbit hole can find the truth of their being lies in something well beyond this physical body. And the reason that is such an important part of this level of change is because maybe your truth is that to lose weight, you're going to go to the gym 5 days a week. Maybe your truth is that to lose weight, you're going to take casual walks in the forest 5 days a week. And guess where that truth is going to be sourced from? It's not going to come from outside yourself. It's going to come from within. It's going to come from this connection to your intuition, to your purpose, to the intentionality of how your unique story is meant to unfold. And this is also something that, like any other muscle, can be consciously developed. I spent my formal education as an engineer. I was very much in my left brain, and quantum physics and the deep rabbit hole of going all the way down the fields of physics is what popped me out into my right brain, into my spiritual creative brain, where I started to recognize some of this larger picture that lies beyond the five senses. And it's a practice that I've put in place in my life to connect to that part of myself. And over the last 10 plus years, I've been consciously developing that muscle, so to speak. And anyone can develop it. I certainly didn't start off as some intuitive, connected person. And now I have a very real, very tangible connection to that part of myself. And I know that it can prevent you from walking into those closed doors over and over again. It can help you to walk through the doors that want to open for you and to make change more real, more easy, more fun, and more lasting. So that's the 7 levels of change. And that's the areas that I encourage people to look at when they're really trying to create a result. Don't just focus on the actions. Open yourself to all of these layers. And we have stuff inside the Feel Good library that addresses all these layers. That's really where the body of work comes from, is to help people take steps, right? Like tapping is great for the nervous system. And we have a course on optimizing your environment. And it's really just a conversation around what that might look like, right? So really recognizing that all these different layers can play a part in your healing, can play a part in achieving what it is you want out of your life.
Oh, absolutely. That was fascinating. I have a couple of comments that we need to take after this quick commercial break. We'll come back and we're going to talk about identity and intuition a little bit, those top 2 layers, for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for inspired conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Do you want to be a better leader, have better relationships, become more self-aware, be a better communicator? Hi, I'm Sharon Sayler, best-selling author, professional speaker, and executive coach. And my life passion is empowering professionals to be the best that they can be. After years of working with professionals, I've discovered the 7 things nobody is telling you that can cost you your clients, sales, and even your career. And I want to give it to you free. You've heard my show, you know my passion, and maybe we'll be working together sooner rather than later. So go grab this ebook now to find out the 7 things that's costing you big time over at SharonSayler.com/radio gift. Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and Noah Hammond Tyrrell. He's a spiritual life and business coach, and he also is the creator of, let me get it right, the feelgoodlibrary.com, as well as other things. And he's been talking about his 7 layers of change and also the miraculous story of his ability and his I'll say intuition into helping his father overcome stage 4 liver cancer. Now, Noah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the upper 2 levels, identity and intuition, because to me, they're very close. They're very close. And one of the things that I notice that people do when they get a diagnosis, regardless of what the diagnosis is, doesn't have to be an autoimmune, is sometimes they take it as ownership, as an I am type statement. I am. And oftentimes I find that people who get stuck in this idea that the diagnosis is their identity have a harder time dealing with change and optimizing and getting through to the other side of who they really want to become. So what experiences have you had when people all of a sudden, because I want to back up for just a second, because sometimes when someone gives us a diagnosis, someone we trust, let's just call them the white coat authority. I was raised that way. Never say, never talk back to those. And they say, you have, and you take it as ownership. I mean, I have, oh my goodness, I have that. I like to say, guys, when an exterminator tells you have cockroaches, that doesn't mean you want them, nor do you want to keep them. I mean, hopefully not, Right. So understand that word have. So when the white coat authority says you have, and it's a terrible diagnosis, please keep it out of that identity level, that belief and identity level, keep it out of there, because otherwise you'll have a much tougher time transforming your life. So let's talk a little bit more about this area of identity and then the layer above that of intuition, because I think a lot of people poo-poo their intuition. They're like, what's that about?
Big time. And we've been taught to do that, right? We go to schools where you have to raise your hand to ask if it's all right for you to go to the bathroom. We learn from textbooks that are outdated, right? There's nothing about emotional intelligence taught to us in school, let alone personal finance, but that's a topic for another day, right? The core life skills, communication, meditation, connection with self-love, self-identity, these things are not taught in school, right? So it's no wonder that it's so hard for people to connect to their own intuition, because we're so used to outsourcing our authority, to abdicating our authority to whoever has the authority, whether it's our parents, our teachers, our bosses, our white coats, whatever it is. Someone else is always supposed to be carrying the authority for us, because that's how society is sort of set up, right? So it has to become a conscious process to hear your intuition and follow through on it. And it's terrifying. It's frankly terrifying sometimes what the guidance is that you will get from your intuition, but the faith is built and the courage is built and the surrender is built by saying, I'm going to listen to my inner higher authority above all else. And that was a decision that I made about 10 years ago, now 11 years ago. I said, no matter what, I'm going to check with my intuition as clearly as I can. And I have processes for doing that. I'm going to listen to what I can hear as best I can. I'm going to follow through on it, no matter how scary or confusing it might be. And there are times where it has been scary and confusing, but guess what? It's for your highest good. Because on the other level, or on the other side, you have a new level of connectedness, of knowingness, right? And an embodiment of that allows you to move forward in your life in a whole new way that is not common or typical in society. So that's one thing. And then to speak to the identifying with your diagnosis, the reason that is so dangerous is because then you can't let go of it, because then your ego gets in the way and you start to become it, right? And I've sort of seen this too with the COVID pandemic. I've noticed that some people who get it, they're almost happy they got it. And I know that it's subconscious, and I know that no one goes, I'm so excited that I got it. But to be the center of attention in your peer group, to have everyone asking you every day, how are you feeling? How are you recovering? These fill needs, human needs that are basic, like the need to matter, to have impact, the need to be cared for, to feel loved. And sometimes we get those needs met in very strange ways that don't actually fulfill our highest good or our highest experience of life. And so when you get a diagnosis, sometimes it can almost be subconsciously attractive to start to really identify with it, to identify with the story of it, to surround yourself with people who feel bad for you or remorseful for you, or who want to give you extra love and attention. And then what are you losing if you actually heal yourself? Well, you're losing all of that. And if you're not conscious of this, it can have a very dark, subconscious, sort of unaware pull to keep you sick, to keep you unwell.
Absolutely. One of the stories from the shows was a person who had injured their back, and it wasn't 100% anymore, but it wasn't the way it had been. And they started wondering about that, and they realized that having, I'll put in air quotes, a bad back kept them from having to do housework, which they hated. Now, I think that's a fascinating discovery about oneself and a power of honesty with oneself. Like, yes. What other purpose is this, quote unquote, in this case, bad back, serving? And they were quite stunned and shocked when they found out, well, that's a silly, I could hire it done, for heaven's sakes, release the quote unquote bad back and just outsource the housekeeping.
But we don't realize that we all have multiple personality disorder, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're all different people when we're hungry than when we're well fed. We're different people when we're tired versus when we're well rested. We're different people under pressure versus when we're feeling calm. We all have different facets to our personality that were developed at different stages of our development. And some of the programs and the operating systems that are running in our current adult world were programs that were developed when we were 5 years old. We're like, this is a way to get love. This is a way to get attention. And we all know that kid who tells a lie or makes something up because they want attention, and they don't really have a distinction between positive attention and negative attention. They just want some attention, right? Well, every adult person who has not gone back to do the cleanup work has some programs in them that were developed when they were 5 years old from their 5-year-old self. And they were developed with the highest intention in mind of getting love, getting safety, getting security, getting nourishment. But it could still be a 5-year-old strategy. And when you're a 35-year-old person who's dealing with something that's not working in their life, usually a 5-year-old strategy is not the most optimized one, right? So there's actually a technique called parts work, where you can work with these parts and sort of understand what skills they've developed by being a part of you up until this point. And you can take those skills and repurpose them towards functioning in your subconscious mind and your plethora of personalities, so to speak, in a new, more harmonized way. And I think that speaks to this topic of identity and how it relates to healing and sickness and wealth and vitality.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. We're just down to the last few minutes, Noah, and I want you to have time to share more about the feelgoodlibrary.com. I've been over there, checked out a few of the courses, and I just enjoyed them. So share a little more with the audience what they'll find over there at feelgoodlibrary.com.
Well, if you need any help in any of these 7 levels of change, there are courses, there's meditations, there's guided meditations, there's ability, to teach you how to use tapping to release trauma from your body. It literally addresses all 7 layers of this. And it's stuff that I've put together. It's stuff that my wife has created as well. She's a yoga teacher and a sound healer. So there's sound healings and meditations. There's Kundalini yoga exercises. There's ways to understand and identify your core wounds and release them. There's just resources available to people for free for all these 7 levels of change and to support people in feeling good naturally, because that's what my company Feel Good Hemp is all about, is helping people feel good naturally. And we realized that just giving out hemp products is not the whole picture, and just claiming that these hemp products are the be all end all of everything is also not true or accurate. So our mission is to have the healthiest clients in the world of any hemp company, right? We don't want you staying sick. We don't want you keeping what ails you. We want you to fix what ails you and use these hemp products because they're a great supplement for wellness and vitality. And so the Feel Good Library are our give back to the community. It's our way of giving people hope and access. And I truly believe that you can create a lot of change in your life just from going into those free resources and applying what calls to you.
Thank you. Noah, I like the library, and the best part about it was the word free. And they're nice quality little courses, and as he said, on a plethora of different areas of interest for people. And so, Noah, any final thoughts that you'd like to share? We just have about 2 minutes left, but any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I think for your audience, what's coming through is that whether you heal or not is not actually what your journey is about. It's about who you become in the process of going for what matters to you in life, right? We don't all walk out of this life as winners, but we all walk out of this life with progress. And that's what really matters, is the person you get to become in the journey through the difficulties that you face. We all face difficulties. We've all been up against it. And I just encourage you to take those difficulties and transmute them into love via the progress that can be made when you open-mindedly embrace what's in front of you, stop resisting it, and ask, what gift is this troubling thing in front of me trying to give me? And that can instantly elevate your consciousness and open your awareness to so many beautiful miracles. And that's what I hope for you.
Thank you, Noah. That was beautiful. And that's Noah Hammond Tyrrell from the feelgoodlibrary.com, everyone. And I too, Noah, am all about making meaning. Like, how do we make meaning? And the Autoimmune Hour, as my community knows, came out of making meaning from my diagnosis. How can I make meaning of it? And my research too, because I found diving in, like you did with your dad, diving in after my diagnosis and, okay, how are we going to fix this? That it wasn't readily available, yet I was blessed in a way that it was available, and I decided to share it via the Autoimmune Hour. So everyone, have a great week, whatever your adventures. Be sure and have adventures. Go out there and have a few. I know in some parts of the world right now it's pretty cold, but even find some adventures then. It's always, nature to me is the most invigorating for me, and choose your own adventure. Join me next week for another brand new episode. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.